Hey everyone, welcome to the Avoid the Fish YouTube channel. Thank you so much for the support on last week's video. Once again, if you could just hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoy this content, leave some feedback, that would be awesome. Today I'll be talking about the HMS Exeter. I'll leave timestamps in the description below, but first I'll be talking about the history of it, and then I'll talk about the commanders and the ship itself, my build and the kit, and then I'll get into the gameplay. So I'll leave links down in the description below, but we'll jump right into the history. And for those of you that are new to the channel, I try to summarize the history of the ship in 2 minutes, but it's absolutely impossible to get the full story in there. I would recommend researching the Exeter and her crew, as her story is fascinating, and the stories of the men on the ship are fascinating. But I'll jump into the history and try to surmise it as fast as possible. She was a York-class cruiser built in the late 1920s. There were two ships in the class, the York and the Exeter, and she was the last heavy cruiser the British ever completed. Her first battle action was at the Battle of River Plate, where she engaged with the Graf Spee. She had the light cruisers Ajax and Achilles alongside her, and she took a beating in that battle. Initially, she got hit in the bridge, and it took out just basically everything. She couldn't really respond, so she withdrew from the battle, and the Ajax and Achilles pulled forward to engage. The Graf Spee ran away at that point, thinking they were launching torpedoes. He turned away, but they weren't. They were just trying to cover for the Exeter, but the Exeter was able to kind of repair, re-enter the battle, and they eventually trapped the Graf Spee in a neutral harbor. And the Graf Spee, after 24 hours, decided that the captain of that ship decided that it was no longer time to fight, and so he scuttled the Graf Spee. So she survived that battle, but barely. And she went back to England, had repairs, and then she transferred to the East Indies Squadron. And that was where she'd see her hardest fight. And even though she took a beating in the Battle of River Plate. In the first battle of the Java Sea, a Dutch, English, or Dutch, British, and American force um, sailed out against the Japanese force, and they were. Whenever the two forces engaged, the Japanese, if you aren't familiar, had the long lance torpedoes that had just amazing range, far better than anyone else, and amazing damage. And they launched long lance torpedoes. So the British ships and the Allied force turned away, and the Exeter was actually hit by a torpedo, but it didn't detonate, luckily. And then pretty much immediately after that, her 4-inch turret was penetrated, and it detonated. The shell that penetrated that turret detonated in her B boiler room, and that was pretty much where the Allied forces had to disengage because the Exeter was their strongest ship at that point, and she left the battle at a max speed of 5 knots, and she was escorted away by Dutch and British destroyers. And then the very next day, the second battle of the Java Sea, she made a run for Colombo, and she was escorted by a British destroyer Encounter and the American destroyer Pope, but they were spotted by a very heavy Japanese cruiser squadron, which included the ship Miyoko that's in the game. But she was basically attacked from both sides, the north and the south, and she turned east, and she was pretty much immediately hit in her A boiler room, and she was dead in the water, and she began to list heavily. So abandoned ship was ordered. She was soon hit by two long lance torpedoes, and she went to the bottom. 652 of her men were rescued by the Japanese, including her captain, Oliver Gordon, and they all became prisoners of war. And of those 652 men, 152 men died in captivity. So the life of the Exeter was very interesting. In every battle that she fought, she took a heavy beating, but she hung in there until the very end. And her captain, Oliver Gordon, read a book called Fight It Out that was published in 1957 that talks about that and his time as a prisoner of war. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of history. I think the Exeter is a fascinating ship. Wargaming's been great again and provided us with this graphic that details the ship. The first thing that I noticed looking at this graphic is the armor. And this ship was designed under the Washington Naval Agreement. And basically, it had a max tonnage that it could displace. And to get to that point, they used very thin armor so they could still get those heavy guns on there. And that was by design because unlike some warring countries, they followed the Washington Naval Agreement. But her armament of 203 millimeter guns is unique. The only other ship at Tier 5 cruiser that has that is the Aoba, and then of course the Graf Spee has her 283 millimeter guns, but she's more of a pocket battleship. But biggest guns in class as far as for a standard cruiser, a standard being a heavy cruiser. But anyways, her hit points at 29,400. It's decent, nothing to really brag about, but she does have good maneuverability for a heavy cruiser. Her turning circle radius is 650 meters and 6.1 second rudder shift and also a 32 knot speed. Her concealment's good too for a heavy cruiser at 10.5 kilometers, by surface detectability, and then air detectability is 6.6 kilometers. Another thing to note is her torpedo tubes. Range of 8 kilometers is not bad at all for Tier 5. They also travel at 61 knots and a maximum damage of just under 16,000. That's really good. Nothing you want to rely on, but like all the other English destroyer ships or um, torpedo ships, she can launch them sequentially, which is very strong as well because you can get 3 lined up in a row instead of having that widespread. But oh, and one more thing to note with her main battery is a 15% chance to cause fire. That's very good, even though she only has 6 guns in total. 6 guns with a 15% chance to cause fire. You will be lighting a lot of fires with this ship if you shoot HEs, but the AP is very strong as well. And then her kit, she has a repair party, sonar, and then the choice of a smoke generator or a catapult fighter. And I think most people will go with the smoke generator there, as I did. But some of you might prefer the spotting capabilities of that catapult fighter. Moving on to commanders, I think you have 3 options here. If you have the Belfast commander, that's another option, but I'm not going to cover that today. The Belfast is kind of a mix between the 2 cruiser commanders as far as you get a little bit more survivability and a little bit more aggression. But you have Tennant, Jellicoe, and Fraser as the 3 commanders that I'll talk about. Tennant is the support cruiser commander. He helps you stay alive. You can do a little bit extra damage upgrades with him, but mostly he's focused on being faster, being able to maneuver better, be able to take less damage, that kind of a build. And then John Jellicoe is the base commander. If you don't have Tennant or Fraser, he would obviously be the go-to because he can upgrade basically any class of ship, a battleship, destroyer, or a cruiser, but he doesn't strengthen them as much as maybe Tennant or Fraser does. I went with Fraser. My theory on ships is if you have a strength, you make it stronger. Um, Especially with this ship, as far as like focusing on maybe upgrading the survivability, it's already got thin armor. Upgrading it probably isn't going to do a lot to make it survive longer. Whereas with Fraser, upgrade those guns and you just make them better. You make the damage output a lot better because they're already very strong. 203 millimeter, once again, best in class unless you count the Graf Spee, where it's tied for best in the class with the Aoba unless you count the Graf Spee. But with Bruce Fraser, his base trait is to increase maximum speed, which is always good. For trait 1, you upgrade the HE. For trait 2, you upgrade the HE again, just more chance to start fires. And then for trait 3, you've upgraded the HE twice. You upgrade the AP with punch through, increases the damage and the penetration multiplier for the AP shells. And then for trait 4, you go with fixated, so you have better accuracy, better dispersion coming out of your cruiser. And also with my inspirations, I'm using Norman Scott and Yamamoto for better AP pin and better accuracy. And then lastly, if you have him legendary, Bruce Fraser legendary, you go with fully packed. You get that extra repair party, extra smoke, and an extra sonar. Or if you go with the fighter, of course, over the smoke, then you'll have the extra fighter. But the smoke's obviously more valuable with this build, in my opinion. We'll jump into the stats though that I have in this build. Looking at the survivability, nothing's really changed. Notably, what they didn't show on the other graphic is the 4% torpedo damage reduction. It's expected because of that thin armor, but still kind of sucks. If you get hit by a torpedo, you're taking the full damage of it. You really need to avoid torpedoes in this ship, but I guess that goes for every ship as well. Looking at the artillery, this is what we've upgraded. 14.3 kilometers isn't extremely long, but at tier 5, that's okay. Maximum AP shell damage is just under 5,000, and then I want to highlight this because this is fantastic, and people I don't think really noticed whenever the ship came out, but you can get this HE shell chance to set fire up to 20%. I have it at 19.5% right now, but that is absolutely fantastic, especially because you have these bigger guns. Your HEs are just going to be lighting fires all over, especially on battleships, and I'll show you that in the gameplay. And then torpedoes, once again, we've looked at these. I didn't upgrade anything with them, but good torpedoes, 8 kilometer range is always nice to have. And you can launch them sequentially. Maneuverability, for my mods, I'll show you this in a second, but I did take down the rudder shift time, and then it's a little bit faster because of Bruce Fraser's base trait, so you get up to 32.6 knots of a maximum speed. And then concealment, I didn't modify anything with that. But we'll jump into looking at the mods real quick. I went with Aiming Systems Mod 1 for Mod Slot 1. Pretty straightforward there. And then you have the option for Steering Gears Mod 2 or Damage Control Systems Mod 2. For your second mod, I went with Steering Gears. Damage Control on a cruiser, I haven't really ever used. If you like it, you can use that, but Steering Gears just helps me to dodge more shots. With the repair, you gain 147 HP per second. It lasts for 28 seconds. That's straightforward. It's useful. It's not a great repair, but it works. You know, it's just the standard repair that you get in the game. The sonar is a little bit enhanced with this ship, which is awesome in my opinion. Detection of torpedoes is 3.5 kilometers, but the detection of ships is 5.1 kilometers, which is very useful if you have a destroyer and a smoke screen that's in a decent range of you. You don't have to push up real close to find him. But the duration of that is 112 seconds, a little bit shorter than normal, and then a reload time of 180 seconds. So really good sonar with this ship. You do get 3 of them. I find that they're very useful. I usually don't use all 3 in a match. And then the smoke, standard smoke, it is a little bit shorter, only 99 seconds, and a reload time of 3 minutes. But strong smoke, once again, in any British cruiser that you get these smokes, it's very, very useful. You can sit in the open and also have cover in a way because you're not spotted. And then, of course, you have the fighter that's standard, but I won't go over that. It's just a 6-minute fighter. I think it's a 3-minute cooldown or something like that. So we'll jump straight into this gameplay. The map Fault Line Domination. Not always the best for cruisers. You do get funneled into these A and C areas usually, and whenever you're funneled into a specific area as a cruiser, you tend to take a beating. Cruisers are much better when they can operate a little bit more freely, but what I like to do here is I don't want to push up to this funny looking rock in the middle of that island there. I don't like to push up to it. I think that you can get deleted very quickly up there. Like our Aoba, I think it's an Aoba up there, or it's a Furutaka that's going up. But I do like to angle forward here so that I can maybe get a shot on these ships that are crossing. You can see that Normandy, though, is kind of running away from me, so I don't have the range for that right now. But I'll eventually cut back over to the left into the funnel that I talked about that's so dreaded for cruisers. But I do have that smoke screen that does help me give me a little bit of protection there. Very nice about British cruisers is that you can smoke an area like that where you're absolutely stuck. But we do spot that Nuremberg, and we do pop a couple shots at it as we go around the corner. With this ship, I found that the 203mm guns are actually very accurate for gun caliber like that at this tier. You kind of see that Wargaming will nerf guns dispersion-wise whenever they're like overclassed for a tier, but you don't see that with this ship. Although it is, you can see a little bit low on health as far as, you know, a 30,000 never gives you much confidence as far as being able to brawl, so you want to make sure that you're kind of sitting back a little bit, maybe not playing as aggressive as I usually do. You'll see me a little bit later on. I do play pretty aggressive and do get punished some for it. But this sea point is starting to be captured now, so we can kind of conclude that there's a destroyer in there. They do have an Isokaze and a Fubuki, if you didn't pick up on that from the beginning of the match. But the Isokaze is a little bit out of its tier. It's a tier 3 and a tier 5 match. But the Fubuki is also in the game at a tier 5, and those are to be dreaded because they do have wonderful concealment and those big torpedoes that are going to be pretty scary. Even if you're in a cruiser with 4% damage reduction, you don't want to be hit by those. I do mess up here. I was thinking I could get all 3 of my turrets involved here, but I open up a pretty wide broadside and I can't get that last one involved. So I try to turn back to mitigate some of that damage that will be coming in. I also didn't really realize that Normandy was so close up there to coming around. I thought he was still kind of running away. I wasn't really paying much attention, and I should have been, so I get smacked there for 10,000 damage. That's a third of my health just gone. So I use basically everything I have right now to try to get me back in this game because I made a big mistake at the beginning. But now I'm kind of posted up in this power position. This guy is spotted. I can start unleashing. I've already started 1 fire this game. That 20% chance to cause fire is fantastic. And you'll see that I just kind of start unloading on this guy. Strategy-wise on this ship, as far as like pushing up kind of how I just did, I wouldn't recommend it. If you can sit back and play a little bit more aggressive, it's probably going to be more optimal and you can deal out a lot more damage than me. But I've been playing a lot of the Prince Eugen. That ship's tanky, you can push up, you can launch torpedoes on people, you don't get punished quite as hard for your mistakes, and I've developed some bad cruiser habits. Now, this made me mad in the game. I get that I went forward, I stopped, and then I went forward. I was trying to not sit still in my smoke screen. But if you're playing a battleship and you're going through someone's smoke, you know, it's just not a good play usually for you. You're not going to be concealed if you're shooting your guns, and no matter what range you are really, if you're a battleship shooting in smoke. To go through, it's just kind of like, you know, you're asking for them to take just even splash damage while you're going through it. Not a good teammate play, but it's also kind of my fault there because I did push up after sitting still for a while. So I can't be too angry at this guy, but it was kind of frustrating. But he pushes up, kind of a questionable play because there is the destroyer in this cap that he already knows about that has launched torpedoes at him before, but he starts to push up. I'm just going to back up, make sure that I'm still moving in my smoke. It's always key to moving your smoke. But you can see I've launched 4 fires now. I've started 4 fires, launched 4 fires. I've started 4 fires. I've got 30,000 damage. Like all these ships that will start fires easily, you don't really see that damage build up that quickly, but then it does. Suddenly you're at 30,000 damage. I have 5 fires starting now, and this Normandy is burning to death, um, which is always good to see whenever there's a battleship. The one battleship across from you is almost dead. Whenever you're a cruiser player, it gives you some more freedom to operate. But I am spotted now. This Normandy is kind of focused on the Congo though, so I can stay out a little bit, but I will back up some too. I don't want to get absolutely obliterated by the Normandy because that can happen in the ship. You can't play too aggressive. If you make mistakes of pushing out too far, you will get deleted. But at this point, I'm still at that initial salvo from the Normandy. I took 10,000 HP away from that, and that's basically where I am right now. Now this Congo is pushed up, and I want to play aggressive and support him. So I start going forward here, and he immediately gets hit by all those torpedoes from the Fubuki. Now I'm in a little bit of a tricky situation. The 2 battleships that sailed all the way around behind me, they're not pushed up enough, and this Normandy probably isn't going to be finished by my fires quite quickly enough. I do have 45,000 damage. That's basically all in the Normandy. He's taken a lot of fire burning damage from me, which is probably really frustrating for him. So now he wants to punish me for it, and so he launches. Both my front turrets get destroyed. They're not destroyed, but incapacitated. And I'm losing chunks of HP because I just pushed up a little bit too aggressively there, trying to help out my Congo. Or it wasn't a Congo, was it? I don't know what it was. It might have been a Koenig. But anyways, he's still burning. He's going to be finished off here. I do get a little bit worried at the end. I'm like, oh, did he put it out? But he didn't put it out. I got the arsonist medal on him. You can see that's how much I did. Now that Fubuki is spotted, I'll take one quick shot at this Nuremberg, and then I'll work on chasing down this Fubuki. This is a tricky situation. Normally, if you had a heavy cruiser, you'd be like, this is fine. This cruiser is shooting at me from a long ways away. But I'm in a tricky spot now because I have this light armor. I can't really play that aggressive as far as just pushing out, chasing this Fubuki, but I kind of need to as well because he's in that 2.6 kilometer range. He's at a point where I just need to finish him off. He's messed up. He stayed in his smoke way too long, even though I was spotted pushing up. So I'm down at this point to 6,500 HP. This Fubuki's taking a little bit of a beating too. I've lit a fire on him as well. Once again, these HEs are incredible in the 203 millimeters. But his engines are dead. We can finish him off there. Now we can focus on this Nuremberg. My repair party is going to be coming up in 34 seconds, which that's kind of what I want to get to right now. This Nuremberg has been shooting at me for a while, and these battleships have finally pushed up, and my smoke's back. So I kind of feel like maybe I won't be able to win this battle just with my guns because I do have that weak armor, so I pop my smoke and slow down, and then I hit him with the Citadel. You do Citadel cruisers quite often in this ship. As soon as you switch those APs, they're deadly. This ship has deadly guns. You just got to make sure because you are a little bit of a glass cannon in this thing. I didn't really ever get deleted. That will probably happen to me a couple times where I just get, one salvo at the beginning of the game and I'm gone. But I didn't get deleted necessarily. But every time you get hit, it feels like chunks of your HP are going away. So you just got to be careful. Play this ship aggressively, but not just balls to the wall. You got to make sure that you know what you're doing. At this point, we have 3 ships left. I really don't like posting games that I lose. I like to post games that I win. But this one's going to be tough to do anything with now at this point. I've done 70,000 damage. I've taken about 70,000 damage, it feels like. I don't know how I'm still alive at this point. I'll speed up the gameplay, and we'll get to the next kind of engagement here. So I'm looking around, I get spotted, I'm kind of frustrated. These battleships have just been following me all game. They haven't taken any damage for this game. They've just been sitting back following a cruiser. As far as like actual naval battles go, that's probably pretty accurate. But in this game, if you're a battleship, you don't need to be spotting, but you need to play aggressive, and they've just been stuck behind islands. And maybe that's my fault because I've been pushing so aggressively, but I kind of wanted them to cut through mid there to go towards B. But this Emerald's taking shots at me. You can see every time I hit him, I'm taking like 4,000 damage. Or he started this at basically full health, and I haven't really lost much. I do get kind of lucky here that it is an Emerald. He, of course, doesn't have those big turrets that allow him to shoot, like 5 or 6 guns, or 5 or 6 total shells at me from the front. He has to start turning away and everything. So I do have an advantage of this fight because I can get 6 of my big guns on him while he can only get 3 or 4 of his little guns on me. But I am dodging these shots quite well too. But you can see that I've chunked him down all the way to a quarter of his health, and he's only taken probably about 3,000 or 4,000 damage away from me. But I'm hoping that I can finish him off before I exit the game. And once again, this is what you'll see in most of your cruiser battles. I hit a Citadel there on him. I have 404 HP left. I know the next shot that he fires is going to kill me, and I just hope I can get my next one off. And we're able to finish him off with another Citadel. But you will be able to do this to cruisers. You just got to make sure that you're not getting Citadel yourself, because you do get Citadel quite easily with this thing. And if they're not even Citadeling you, they're taking away chunks of health. So you have to make sure that you're being accurate. You're kind of kiting, dodging some of that damage. But this is a good ship. I like it. It's a glass cannon. Maybe not the most viable for something like competitive, like rank play. It will be good for that, but as far as actually being able to take some damage and make some clutch plays like you need to do, I wouldn't expect that consistently from a ship that just doesn't have that ability to take hits. But as far as dealing out damage, these are fantastic guns. Every game that I played, it felt like I was doing more damage than I was dealt, even if I was in a really sticky situation, because I was playing it like a Prince Eugen at times. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully if you get this ship, you enjoyed as much as I do so far. I might do another video in a couple weeks here, just saying after I've had it for a long time, how I feel about it. But thanks for watching, guys. Once again, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, leave me some feedback down below. I'll try to get the Road to the Grocer Co. first episode 2 out pretty quickly here, as I am on to stage 4. But once again, guys, thanks for watching, and have smooth sailing out there. See ya.